Welcome to the Your Message Received podcast. And now, taking your message to the finish line, your host, John Duffin.
Hey folks, John Duffin here with Duffin Media. Welcome back to another episode of Your Message Received. Your Message Received is the home, the place, the platform to help you find your best, most true, authentic business voice. Hell, your most authentic voice. Get what you want, find what you need, improve your results, meet the person of your dreams, make billions of dollars. I can't guarantee those last two. We're working on those. But the rest of it, I feel quite confident about. And love the fact that you continue to like, subscribe, follow us on Spotify and iHeartMedia and Apple Podcasts, and visually on YouTube. Thank you for all of this. And folks, the reason this program works is because we find people who walk the walk, who understand that it's important not just to have an arc of authenticity, but are really comfortable with sharing it as well too. And today, no exception. So I get the privilege to introduce Gabe German, loan officer at Home Team, powered by Movement Mortgage. Gabe, great to have you here, man.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
It is so good to have you. Folks, right away, if you follow Gabe on social media, you may be a fan of his 1-2 rant. And if you're not, then maybe you ought to learn a little bit about it too. Gabe, why is it relevant for you in terms of just being able to share pieces of yourself? What is it about the 1-2 rant that resonates for you?
Well, it's funny because when, if I take it back to when I started those things, I literally went on there because I earlier in my career, I had found that a lot of people that were doing content, a lot of videos, and what I did was I actually studied different types of content. And I realized that I think the same way most people think, right? Most people get bored when they see just straight advertisements, and I wanted to get some kind of voice out there so people understood and knew who I was. And then it turned into something completely, utterly different. Because one of the things that I learned over time is that people identify with people. They don't identify with something that's like the perfect picture or the perfect content or the way it looks perfectly. What they do is they identify, number one, people want to get motivated. Okay. Everybody knows most of the things that I'm saying. They just like to hear it from someone else, including myself, and then it just kind of turned into, I was doing it for a while and then I would take one day off from doing it and they'd be like, Gabe, are you okay? And I was like, what do you mean, am I okay? Right. Well, we didn't hear your 1-2 rant today. And that to me, that meant that even though there weren't a lot of likes, there weren't a lot of comments, there was actually people watching, right? Based on my history, one of the ways that I operate is I have a big giver's gain mentality. Okay. I don't like to take. I like to give. And ultimately the rewards will take care of themselves afterwards. So for me, it's selfish and selfless, right? Because number one, it's selfless because I'm putting out a message that might motivate you to be a little bit better. You might have woken up on the wrong side of the bed. You might have been pissed off. You might not be doing well, whether it be in your personal relationship, whether it's your friends, whether it's your business, whatever the case may be. You just might be in a really, really bad place today. And it just might, like for me, I've had days where someone might have just said that one thing to me. Boom, it sparked in my head and it changed my whole mentality of the whole day. So I like to do that in the morning because I know that if you can start your day the right way in the morning, usually the rest kind of takes care of itself. And whether you're life is life. Life's going to hit you no matter what. You're going to have good days. You're going to have bad days. But on the days that you have those bad days, you're able to then adjust based on maybe someone saying something, right? And then from the selfish side, I have to remind myself these things. It's not like these things just pop up in my head. I think of something and I just talk about it. And it's really that simple. For me, it comes simple. I understand a lot of people have a hard time with a phone in front of them and talking to them or the camera or whatever the case may be, I can care less. It really just, I've just never had a fear. I've never had I've spoken in front of 25,000 and I've spoken in front of one. So it doesn't really affect me. It's more about if John Duffin can listen to my video this morning.
Yep.
And get one thing out of it, I've done my job. Mm-hmm. And whether I take credit for that or he tells me about it or he doesn't, that's irrelevant. That's none of my business, to be completely honest with you.
I like that.
What's my business is doing my part in helping someone else. And if I could start my day that way, it can continue and hopefully trickle down to the rest of the day. I might not have a great day that day, but if I look at things over time on a macro scale, not on such a micro scale, I'll end up having more good days than bad by doing so.
I feel like that's such a cool thing. By the way, folks, you haven't had the advantage that I have so far. Maybe you have. 2 prior podcast guests who also happen to be, I'm big fans of both of them, are reasons why I know Gabe. And it's Josh Buckner, if you're out there listening, from Real Producers, and Avi Cohen from Citywide the Matchmaker. I had Gabe come up to me literally at a Real Producers event, and Gabe, you just said whether I was speaking in front of 25,000 people or one. Gabe came up to me. It was very shortly before I was speaking, and the conversation didn't have a ton to do with what I was about to speak about, but you have this very generous presence. And that was one of the things that I found. You're welcome. In terms of, I think, some of the stronger connectors, as you talked about it, it's like being like that sort of a giver in that regard too. I think it's easier to be a real connector when it's apparent that you are actually the one that's giving as well too. Has that always been your nature?
Yeah. So I've always been the type of person, well, earlier in my life, it was all about acceptance. So I did it for acceptance, and that was the wrong reason to do it for. And as I got older in my life, and, I'm now sober going on 6 years, and these, once these things happen, when my biggest thing is making someone feel a little bit better, right? Just a tiny bit, even if it's an 1/8% better than it was before you went into the conversation with me, whether it's I'm making you laugh or I'm just it could be me saying nothing, just literally having an ear for someone struggling. To me, there's like an ultimate reward in that. That's a high you don't get. And trust me, I know a little bit about highs. So I'm telling you.
Oh, we'll get to that, brother.
That is something that if the hairs on your arm are standing up, you're doing something that's right, and you're doing something that you love to do. And if that's something you can say you can do once or twice on a daily basis, you've won the day.
Well, I love that sense, and you actually walked the walk. Talk to me about walking speaking of walking all the way back in regards to growing up, man. I love the fact that I grew up in Northeast Philadelphia, lived in Philadelphia, still lived in Philadelphia. You've had some amazingly cool back experiences. Talk to me about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I mean, I was born in Israel, in Tel Aviv, and my parents are from Latvia, from Riga.
Okay.
At the time, it was still the USSR when they had left. And having a Jewish background, it was probably a little bit difficult for my grandparents to live there. So they actually left their money and everything there to start over in Israel. They moved, and my parents met there. I was born, my sister was born, and at that time, it was different. It was just a completely different time. My father was in the army in both Russia at the time and then in Israel, and it's funny because in 1983 he came to America, and what he saw was like the American dream. And things to him, it was just like another world. And he had a lot of friends from his childhood that moved directly to America, and he fell in love with New York. And he came back, and so number one, he fell in love with New York, and number two, he didn't want me or my sister to be forced to go to the Army at 17 years old or whenever you're finishing high school. Usually within 6 months, you're drafted immediately. There's no questions asked.
Okay, that's Israel we're talking about, where you go
Israel.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah. And for 2 years,
Mhm.
if you're a female for 2 years, you're in the Army, and if you're a male for 3 years. And then every year after that, until the age of 55, you do at least 1 month of like security detail. My father had big resentments with that. And, he wanted me and my sister to have the choice. You want to go to the Army? Go to the Army, but it has to be your choice. No one should be forcing you to do that. And he saw all these crazy opportunities in America. So, we moved, and, I still have a ton of family there. We were the first ones to ever move. Like, my daughter was the first person in my whole family to be born in America. And, when I moved.
Really? Wow. So, but before I get to your daughter, I'm curious. So it's an entire family that has come to New York. New York is known for that. So is America. But I mean, what was it like though? But what was that like? What was that experience like being in literally a new place? Not to mention, if you're going to pick a place and it's New York and it's massive, what was that like for you growing up?
At first I felt like we were going on a really long vacation. I mean, I was 6 years old, and then I remember, I remember I was in, I believe, first grade, and they put me in kindergarten instead of first grade because two reasons. Number one, my birthday's in December. I missed the cutoff date at that point. Number two, I didn't have a lick of English in me. I was speaking Russian and Hebrew at the time. So they held me back, and I remember sitting there, and I had to learn the language that other kids were already speaking. I felt very alone, right? And it was just surreal. It was just different. In Israel, I was walking across the street to my grandmother's, walking down the other block, there's my aunt. Everybody's within a 2-block radius. And now it's just me, my sister, and my parents, and with not a lot of money at all. I mean, we grew up, lower middle class at that point. And my dad's working. I believe he was a cab driver at the time. And my mother was looking for work. For my sister, it was a little bit different. She was 2 years old, so she only remembers America. For me, it was a huge adjustment. It was really, I taught myself by listening. That's all I did. I just stayed quiet in a classroom and got the language. It was funny, how they say like Europeans are better in math and we're better at other things. And I'm sitting here like acing math tests because I was on like a second grade math level, and I was on like an infant English level. So that's what kindergarten and
hence the future money maker, the future money guy, getting that inherent head start early on. But you said the different part. So you've hit on several things, and you talk about the fact, like, I know you're not the only one who's got recovery in them in this conversation. You and me both, and you hear often that sense of, well, I always felt different. Folks, if you've been in the midst of, if you know anyone in recovery, or if you personally are involved, or walking, or taking the steps, so to speak, that it's like you hear that a lot. But Gabe, you just identified something. You literally felt different, and for damn good reason. Like, you're not speaking the language. You've got to learn the language. You're in a completely different place. Did that carry through, that sense of feeling different? Did that stay with you?
That stayed with me till I was 38 years old.
My gosh. Okay.
So that story is one of acceptance, right? Because I will tell you, I'm one of those people that can be in a room, in a stadium, and I could feel alone at any point in time. And a lot of people in recovery identify with that.
I do.
My whole story is one of acceptance. But the thing is that while I was trying to get acceptance from all external things and people around me, the truth is that the only one I was always battling was myself. So I was fighting a losing battle the whole time, because it didn't matter my friend Paul or my friend P accepted me, it didn't matter. I still wouldn't feel accepted. You understand? Because at the end of the day, I just wasn't accepting the person that you're looking at today, or that I look at in the mirror, and that's my whole story. So the reason why that was one of my first memories in America is because that like carried till the end. My parents, once my mother found work, my parents were working a lot just to keep the lights on in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And I found myself being a third parent to my sister, who was 4 years older than me. Mind you, like I'm 8 years old, I'm 8, she's 4. I'm going, I'm feeding her, I'm doing her homework with her, I'm doing my homework, I'm walking her from school, whatever the case may be, while a lot of kids are outside, hanging out and having a good time. And that carried into Staten Island as well. So when I moved to Staten Island and I was 10 years old, I would do the same identical things for my sister. And the truth is that if you're from New York, you could probably identify that if, like last night, if all the guys were on the corner hanging out while you were in the house, you felt like you just missed the world. You missed nothing. You missed absolutely nothing, but you felt like, oh my God, I can't believe I missed that. I'm not part of.
Okay.
Right? I'm not part of. While I'm doing first grade homework with my sister and I'm in the 5th grade, you guys were hanging out in the corner and this happened and this happened and this happened. Nothing happened. But in my mind, the world was over every night.
And you're missing out. And you're in essence, and you in essence are missing out. How did it manifest as you're growing and as you and your sister are growing and aging and stuff? How did that play out for you?
So my sister and I are very, very close.
Great.
Very, very close. I grew up mostly in Staten Island, right? Because I was about 9 years old when I moved here, and then my parents still live in the same house that they lived in back then. And we grew up in a predominantly Italian type of area, if you can't notice by my accent already. It's funny, if you look in New York, people will laugh. They'll be like, okay, you don't sound like anything different. And if I go like to Philadelphia, they're all like, oh, that's Gabe from New York.
That's Gabe from New York.
And
so yeah, I get the accent. Yes, I get all that stuff. But like, talk more in regards to your folks and in regards to the sense of, like I said, the community. Sorry, as it relates to New York, and then we'll get to a little bit further in continuation as it regards to the sense of discomfort that you were feeling. Talk to me a little more, man.
Yeah. So I mean, every part of my being moving forward, I could probably just trace back to acceptance. It's all about it, right? I'll say that word probably 57 more times during our conversation, because that's the reality. That's exactly what it was all about. I grew up. I went to good schools. I played sports. I ran track. I played basketball. I went to college in Oneonta, which is upstate New York. And if you know anything about Oneonta, it was the #1 small party school in, for all SUNY schools at the time. And that was right up my alley, because, I'm a kid that just, I came from, not super strict, but strict parents. I had a curfew throughout high school where others didn't, even senior year. And you know what I mean? And it's like putting candy in front of a baby, man. You're the fraternity life and this and that. And it was just straight party for 2.5 years. And the truth is, I left before that I could get thrown out or, fail out or whatever, because what I did full time was nothing. I partied and I hung out, and it was just girls, alcohol, drugs, and they say that sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I mean, that was college, and I don't regret it for a second, because when I did come back, my father gave me a nice hard little lesson about becoming an adult. And he said, you got 2 options. You can go get a job, or you can go live on the street. I don't care.
Wow.
And he cared, but those were my options. And that's
what did you choose? So what did you choose?
So, as a good Staten Island boy, I went to work at a pizzeria,
There you go.
which is, and because I always loved to cook, and that's part of my story too. I worked at a place called Goodfellas in Staten Island, and no pun intended.
I
And
was saying it was really called Goodfellas. Nice.
yeah, yeah, it's still around, and I went from delivery guy to busboy to waiter to manager to chef to pizza guy. I mean, you name it, I did it in there. And then I would open up places for they would send me when they franchised out. So I was the guy that went and showed everybody how to do every single one of their jobs. Then I went to Philadelphia because I decided that the problem was everybody in Staten Island, and I was Jewish and they were Italian and whatever, right? And the problem was that
fix it by moving to Philadelphia.
The problem was Staten Island, not
obviously.
Me.
So,
right. So in 2000,
welcome to Philadelphia, brother.
So then I went down to the 1080 building on Delaware Avenue, and back then there was only two things. There was a mortgage boom happening, a hard one, the wild, wild west of the refi boom.
Yeah, man.
There was Dave and Buster's, and there was Allen Iverson, and there was nothing else. There was no casino. There these new buildings, these high rise, these things were not around. And we went, and I thought I had found my calling because now I'm being accepted in my head by people with the same background as I have. Because he's one of my dad's best friends. I call him my uncle. Lived there, and I grew up with him and his kids. And I worked for my cousin. It's not really my cousin, but my cousin's husband.
Okay.
And sex, drugs, and rock and roll. That was the mortgage industry back in 2001, 2002, 2003. And in some cases, it still is today for some people, but not for me. But back then, that's what it was. We had a lot of fun. We made a lot of money. We were too young to handle that money, is for sure. And anybody that, tells me that they're always ready for $5 million, when you grow up, you find out real quick, whether you're ready, whether you are ready for something or not. And, it was what it was. We had a great time. We had a lot of fun. In 2000, then I moved back to Staten Island, kept doing mortgages for a little bit here. And in about 2006, I saw what I thought was going to be the end of this industry coming to an end. And I got out probably before anything bad could happen with people, with myself and people around me. And the only other passion that I had to do, because I was like, okay, what am I going to do in my life now, right, is I love to cook. So I went to the French Culinary Institute in Manhattan.
Wow.
I finished that program. I became a chef. I worked with some high-end guys, Bobby Flay, Jacques Pepin, all these big names in New York. And, what I didn't realize was that, when you're cooking, it's one thing for your friends and family. When you're in a restaurant, it's a whole nother,
What was the pressure like?
Oh, I mean, it was insane. It was nonstop. You had to really, it's a high pace, high energy environment. Even if you're peeling potatoes, those things better be peeled real fast. So, at the end of the day, back in the day, you needed two things. And excuse me for saying this, but there was two qualifications to being a great chef. You had to know how to use a knife correctly, and you had to snort cocaine correctly. And I was actually really good at both. So once that happened, it was, it was great. I found my calling, whatever. And then I wasn't really moving up that fast. Manhattan's very, very competitive when it comes to chefs.
Sure.
So I decided to go back to Philadelphia because I still knew people, I had friends there. I said, okay, let me see what's going on there. So I went back to Philadelphia. Somehow I found myself an executive chef's job 6 months out of culinary school. I don't even know where to buy broccoli, but I'm an executive chef. So that in itself was a little bit of a disaster. 6 months later, the restaurant that I was at closed down, and I had to figure out what to do. But I started dating a woman, and who ended up being my wife at the time. We're now divorced, but she was my wife at the time, and we both loved to partake in certain things, and we went to town, and we ended up being running buddies, and our parents enabled the living hell out of us. Her parents, God bless them, but they didn't know how to handle us. And they enabled us. They bought us a children's daycare. They bought me an ambulance company. They bought me a seal coating company, and we were making money hand over fist. But it was handed to us. We didn't earn it.
Right.
We didn't earn a goddamn thing. We were sitting around with the white picket fence as if we're like these great entrepreneurs. But the reality is, somebody's just giving us money. That's all it is. And that's where like the grips of my addiction really, really took over. Because now I had a running buddy. I didn't have to hide anything. And we went to town, and what's a good addict alcoholic to do with another? You get down on one knee, and obviously you get engaged, because you're thinking, in my world, I have a pretty woman, her parents are rich, I hit the lotto, you better get down on one knee real quick.
And you're having fun. So it's like,
right. So we got married. We tried to have a kid for a couple of years, and that wasn't working out. And through a little bit of assistance, artificial insemination and whatnot, after 3 rounds, at that time, it's funny because at that time we were supposed to have twins, and like 2 weeks later, we found out that it was only one. And 7.5 months into it, my daughter was born, and a preemie. She was addicted. She was on a morphine drip. She's in the NICU. My wife at the time, we both had some serious problems.
Wow.
And, this is where partying is, like, the party's now over. It's been over. And now we're losing businesses, and when this is happening and that's happening, now we have no money, and all these things that come with the grips of alcoholism and addiction come into play, right? And then we just went our separate ways. We separated. Obviously, we were running buddies. That's all we were. And that continued in Staten Island for me for a little while. I decided one day, I just decided to, it was what it was. Like, there's only 3 places you can end up, right? Jails, institutions, or you're going to save your life and make a life for yourself. So I decided that a good little Jewish kid like me doesn't really belong in jail. I can't really hang it there. And I didn't have the balls to die or do something to myself. So I decided, and my daughter had a lot to do with it at the time, getting me there. What I did for myself, and I learned that there. But getting me through that door and actually saying, okay, I need help, that brought me there. I came out, and when I came out, so one of the owners of the home team, James Houston, I grew up with him. We were childhood friends, and I remember I got out of rehab, and I asked him, I said, hey, Jimmy, can you hire me? And he said, absolutely not. And I said, why not? He's like, you need to put 2 years together before I hire you. And I said, why
do you know why the number? I'm wondering why that number was.
He
just
felt
an arbitrary number, or
for him, he felt that 2 years away and 2 years being living sober would be enough for me to then put myself in certain environments, because in the real estate and mortgage community, I mean, listen, nobody socializes without alcohol around them. Nobody you know what I mean? There's a lot of partying and a lot of networking going on.
I've learned that, for me, right? Exactly. I've learned it.
And then for me, it was just, he wanted me to be away from it. And truth is, I don't think he wanted it on his conscience if something should happen to me in that kind of an environment. 2 years later to the day, I guess he put it on his calendar or whatever, he gives me a call and he's like, are you ready? And I'm like, huh? Right. I had some odd end jobs in between.
I was going to ask you, what were you doing? All right. So,
I worked at FedEx for two years.
You're biding time and you're just good.
Right. I don't know where I'm going. At this point, I forgot about the mortgage thing, and I thought I was actually going to just do the FedEx thing.
Yeah.
And he calls me out of nowhere. He's like, are you ready? I'm like, for what? I forgot about it.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, it's 2 years. And that's when I realized what a true friend really was. Because, I tell this to people all the time. 6 years into this journey of mine,
Yeah.
I would much rather you hate me and be alive than love me and be dead. So, you know what I mean? I was a little surprised and shocked when I wasn't hired back then. But once he made that phone call, I was like, oh yeah, let's go. And at that point, I wasn't following the market anymore or looking at real estate or mortgages. So I was clueless, and I walked right into it. I walked right into pre-COVID and
Right.
all that. And
how'd you ramp back up? Because all of these things are in essence these boulders are have been laid in front of you. So
well, I had nothing left.
Okay.
I had absolutely nothing left.
Mhm.
I put my big boy pants on, right? I
Mhm.
did the recovery thing, obviously.
Right.
And I put my big boy pants on and said,
Mhm.
you know what? I have to start over. And at 38 years old, it's not an easy sell for me, at least. It wasn't.
No.
And it was just one of these things where I couldn't. And again, even though I was away for 4 months, when I came back, it wasn't one of these situations where I wanted to turn around and I thought everything was going to change tomorrow. I wanted it to. I still
Right.
wanted,
Mhm.
but it doesn't. It just doesn't work that way. And I just came in, and especially in COVID, I mean, nobody was out. Everybody's got masks on.
Oh,
I don't have a book of business while everybody's going through this refi boom.
right.
But for me, I tend to look at things a little bit differently from the positive side. And for me, it leveled the playing field, because that means that you guys can't go out and you experienced guys can't go out and wine and dine your realtors.
Mhm.
So while you guys are all busy doing your refinances, I'm on social media, and I am basically DMing 20 to 30 real estate agents a day. I'm taking phone calls. I'm coming up to loan officers, obviously virtually, and I'm like, let me work your deals for free. Because the mortgage business back then is not what it is today.
Right.
Dodd-Frank Act, everything's on a computer. We were faxing 1003s back then.
Mhm.
Now we're in a different world,
Yeah.
So I said, you know what? How am I going to learn? And they gave me one manager. He's a very, very good friend of mine, but he wasn't really doing anything for me. Unless I brought deals to the table, he couldn't do anything for me. So I said, okay, you know what? I chose my manager. So I called the owner and I said, listen, this guy is the only guy that's networking. And that's what I need to do. I need to network.
Mhm.
Because I live by a motto: your network is your net worth,
Mhm.
and you're about one handshake away from changing your life. You have no idea. I don't care what market you're in, whether it's the market where you were at 3% or you're in today's market where you're at 6.5, 7%. It's all irrelevant. You shake the right hand, you're done. You know what I mean? How do you know you didn't shake the guy who owns Toll Brothers? How do you
Right.
know you didn't shake the guy's hand who's like Garoff over at KW Philadelphia, and he happened to take a good liking to you?
Mhm.
How do you know you didn't shake Avi Cohen's hand,
Yep.
who happens to know half of the city,
Oh,
or Josh Bachner,
who knows the other half?
who knows the other half?
Right.
Now I'm their favorite lender.
And you know
You know what I
both.
mean? Right. And I know both. And it's funny because I never looked at these guys as first of all, nobody utilizes them correctly, and I thank God for that, because that puts
What
me
do you
at a
mean?
complete advantage. Well, number one, they're connectors. That's what they do.
Mhm.
Okay, Avi owns a great business citywide. Their rentals. I
Mhm.
mean, he's got a lot going on, right?
Mhm.
And Josh has all these events and all this, but
Mhm.
like, I'm probably one of very, very few people that actually call Josh and say, "Who are we meeting tomorrow? I'm going to be in Philly. Who are we meeting tomorrow?" That's the point.
Mhm.
That's the magic. Because here's the thing: you can go to every event you want, but if there's 7 mortgage companies attacking the same real estate agent, they don't even want to talk to you at that point,
Mhm.
because you're all trying to do the same thing, and it's obvious. You're either trying to make friends in a fake way, non-genuine way,
Yeah.
right? Or whatever the case may be. And what I've been able to do at these events is, number one, and this is kind of my little lesson for networking for people, is
Please.
if you're walking into an event with your team,
Mhm.
don't talk to your team. You can talk to your team anytime. You can see them at the office, whatever the case may be. Work the room, for God's sake. Nobody cares
Mhm.
about hanging out. Why would, like, everybody's sitting there, and sorry for me saying this, but they're all kissing their bosses' asses in the corner playing circ and jerk, instead of walking around and actually
Mhm.
network.
Mhm.
I actually work the room. I prefer when I'm there. Listen, I feel that I'm on the greatest team that anybody can even, nobody could touch us.
Why?
I know that for a fact. My team, the home team.
Why?
Why?
Yeah.
Number
I know
one,
that for a fact. I was like, why?
Okay. So number one, I'm 44 years old. I'm not a spring chicken anymore. I've been
You're like
on
a baby
multiple
to me, man.
Wow. I've been on multiple teams. I've been in multiple companies. I've been in multiple situations. Obviously,
Right.
I didn't go into detail about everything on the way here. And I can tell you one thing. This is a family environment. If I want to talk to the owner of the team,
Right.
that wall right there, I just knock on it. You understand? So if I need something done, that's number one. Number two, they back us. You know what I mean? They back us. They understand that right now in an environment where you have a loan officer that's really might be struggling or hurting or whatever the case may be, maybe the pipeline's not as much, you're not making as much. You built up a lot of bills during COVID because you made a lot of money, but now those bills haven't gone away and you're not making the same amount. So, it's all relevant, right? What's a lot and what's a little to people, depending on their lifestyle. But these guys back us, you need an event, you need a lunch, you need a this, you need a that, you need a marketing agreement, whatever the case may be. These guys are still here backing us while other people are firing people and folding people. These guys are looking to grow, right? What does that really mean to me? That means longevity. That means that this environment come the next time, right? Because we all know the real estate market is just a blood pressure monitor. That's all it really is. So once it goes back up for us, whether it be during the new administration or after the summer, irrelevant. We're going to be here to stay. We have longevity. We treat each other like family. When we walk in packs. The only difference is I walk away from the pack during the actual event, because for me personally, again, I can go out with these guys anytime. I'll be having lunch with them right after this thing is over in a few minutes. But guess what? That's cool here. If you have the opportunity to be in a room with people, network, that's what you should be doing. Now, that's just from the realtor side. There's a whole nother, there's so much to do in networking. People don't understand. I have hedge fund managers that are close friends of mine. Then you're talking about CPAs. Then you're talking about financial guys. These are guys with books of people. So if any loan officers are out there, I have no problem giving you the secret sauce. If you get a CPA, you just made it. You know why? That guy's got a book about this big of people that trust him with their money. What does that mean? That means that if you come to a CPA and say, hey, I'm going to buy a house in September, am I in a good financial place? And that CPA says, yeah, but you should really use my guy over your relative, because your relative is your family member, and this guy's the best mortgage guy. Where do you think that person's going? You understand? And there's no hidden agenda there. There's no hidden agenda. This whole idea that everyone has to run after the real estate agent is insane to me now, because early on in my career, that's what I did. And today I come to realize that we're all working. We all need one another. I got news for you. There's a million of us, but there's not a million of us that can get the job done. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, we all need one another. We all need to work together and, for the common cause. And, if you have a mortgage guy right now that's, help doing a marketing agreement with a real estate agent, and that guy's not, and that guy's not getting the deal done, or the other guy's not, holding his end of the bargain, you're wasting your time. And, in this world, there's only two things that are important in this world, past and beyond everything else. Number one is your health. Number two is time. You're not getting your time back. And in some cases, you might not be able to get your health back. So you might want to work on both of those.
I got a question for you in regards to, you talked about, you used the expression, there's no hidden agendas, but what was running through my mind was this. You have become, I'll say, an open book in regards to the way that you discuss your life and all that sort of thing. When did you get comfortable? And I'm going to say, so in this reemergence back into the mortgage field, right? Yeah. How long did it take you to get comfortable being true to you?
A year.
What do you think got you there?
I don't think it was being true to me was before mortgages.
Yeah, I'm going to phrase that differently.
Yeah, it
Well,
was probably a year after.
articulating. Yeah,
It's a year
articulating.
after getting it. Well, here's the thing, right? So it takes a long time. A lot of people are worried about getting judged. What am I going to
Yeah.
sound like? What
Well,
am I
that's why
going
I'm
to look
asking.
like?
Yeah.
Right? Like if I'm talking about, I'm here. Listen, people are going to judge you anyway.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
They're going to judge you anyway. That's
Mhm.
what we do. We
Mhm.
try to identify as human beings, but we all don't, and we all judge. That's
Mhm.
the reality.
Yep.
Okay. Now, the ones that can identify more times than judge are probably the guys that get ahead.
Mm-hmm.
That's not, and for me, I always thought that if I threw my sober game into the world,
Yeah.
that, listen, I still don't sit here and throw, like, it's not like I talk that much about what I do in recovery. That's completely my business.
Yeah, exactly.
But in regards to being judged, you know, I got to tell you, if
Mm-hmm.
there's any lesson I've ever learned, it's from my dad. And my dad always told me, he said there's two expressions. Like when I was 21 years old, I wanted everybody to like me. Today, I don't give a shit if everybody likes me as long as the ones that are around me love me.
Oh,
You know,
that
if
does my
somebody
heart good.
if somebody turns around to you and says, "Hey, have you ever heard the expression, I'd rather have 4 quarters than 100 pennies?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
So and I still learn these lessons. I still falter. I still fail every damn
Mm-hmm.
day,
Mm-hmm.
and it's okay. I feel like this is like my 1-2 rant times 1,000 because I keep saying a lot of things that I've said, in the past. But the most successful people
Mm-hmm.
in the world, your relationships, your health,
Mm-hmm.
your business, your friendships. I don't care what it is. Okay. The people that are most successful at all of it are the ones that have failed the most times. That's why they're part of the 1%.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? The people in business that got the most no's, shocker, they're in the best 1%. You know why? Because the only way you lose
Mm-hmm.
is if you quit. It's the only way you lose. You
Mm-hmm.
could fail on a daily basis. Those will lead to an ultimate big win. But if you fail and then quit, that's the only way you lose.
Then you're done. Now, I wanted a couple more questions because I love this. Number one is that you've been a family guy, and you brought up your daughter before, and I wanted a little bit more. Because it's on social media, and you take such great joy and pride in regards to being a dad. What are some of the things, or what is the messages that you convey to your daughter, like in terms of, we talk about that arc of authenticity? What is it that it's important to communicate to her in regards to living a life or being true?
Well, it's two things. Number one, it's as a father, and number two is just as a person, right? So,
Right.
as a father,
Mm-hmm.
I FaceTime my daughter every morning and every night.
Oh.
I see her every other weekend.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
I have a very good relationship with her mom.
Great.
And we co-parent very, very well together. We never had to go through court or anything like that.
Cool.
I'm very blessed in that respect.
Mm-hmm.
So as a father, it's very, very important that she knows that she can come to me with anything, no matter what, and I'm not going to overreact. I have promised her that I will not overreact. Right? As long as she comes to me with the truth, I won't overreact.
Mm-hmm.
Very hard for me to overreact anyway. I see the girl once every 2 weeks for 2 or 3 days. So it's very hard, she's kind of got me wrapped around her little finger in that aspect.
Good.
In regards to that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
But that's for that. In regards to as a person,
Mm-hmm.
I just tell her, as life goes on, go to me and your mother and ask us what the next right thing is. And just doing the next right thing. We all know right from wrong.
Mm-hmm.
We really, really do. We just don't like to do right too often. So it's just it's really a matter of just be a good person. And honestly, I just got very lucky with her. I'm not gonna lie to you. I got very, very lucky with her. She's like on a different level.
That's great.
You know, like she's like just a happy, easy kid. I'm sure she's a girl. She'll get into teenage years, and I'll see some of that stuff.
Cross that bridge when you get there.
Right, but just do the next right thing, and your parents will always be there to love you. Your parents will always have your back, and you know she's our miracle child.
Oh, so look, you've also, on a serious note, took on a really personal mission in regards to your brother-in-law.
Yeah,
Want to share about that a little bit?
sure. My brother-in-law, my sister's husband, Asi Myman, he was diagnosed with bone cancer out of nowhere the week after Thanksgiving, this past Thanksgiving, and by March he had passed away. My sister's 40 years old, was left with 4 sons. I have 4 nephews, 7 years old and younger. And you know, it really, I mean, so many emotions come to mind because he's, you know, during my whole journey, he was very, very supportive of me and never always helped me out. So he's more of a brother to me than he was a brother-in-law, you know. And it's been very, very difficult, you know. My family and I were very close and we're very supportive of one another. I go through a lot of guilt because I have my own life and things going on in my world, which stop me from being there every single weekend or whatever the case may be. And we try as much as we can.
Right.
But you know, at the end of the day, you know, with a guy with my type of past, you know, your mind will play tricks on you. You know, you can look at it 2 ways. Hey, obviously I'm here for a reason now, right? I'm here for a reason. I'm here to support my sister, help my sister out, help my nephews out, right?
Yep.
Or you could turn around and say, why him and not me? You know, you could get hit by both sides there, and that plays with my head sometimes. I'm not going to lie, it really, really does. And it's a very, very difficult thing for us to handle because we're going through the first of everything. His birthday just passed, Father's Day just passed, all these things just passed, and it just puts us in a very, very difficult situation of mourning as a family, right? And I don't know whether there's a right and wrong, but I do know that my nephews are a blessing and they keep my sister busy for sure. And I'm sure she has her alone moments, and you know, but one thing about my sister is she knows, you know, we get a ton of support. She gets a ton of support from his sister. And wow, I mean, above and beyond things I could never come close to doing from his side, from the family. But my sister knows I have her back no matter what. I don't care. I'll take the shirt off my back. It is what it is. And you know, ultimately my whole existence, my whole story is just about giving as much as humanly possible. And I'm a true believer that the universe will then come back and, you know, do what it needs to do for you the right way.
So you created it. It was created, the Sefer Torah, and going back to like between the heritage and this beautiful way to build or perpetuate or add to a legacy. Educate me, if you don't mind.
So the Sefer Torah is very, very simple. It's basically a Torah that's being made in his name, in his honor, that his sons on their bar mitzvahs and at their weddings will be able to hold and use in memory of their father, so that their father is still with them. And for generations to come after that, it will be known under his name. And that's the reason why we were raising money. It's not to go to my sister. Nobody's asking for money like that, or, you know, everybody's handled. It's not about that. It's about him and his memory. I believe we have a goal of like $72,000 or $73,000. At this point, I think we're at about 50.
Yeah, I just So,
which is pretty cool.
Put the link. We'll have the link here as people are listening and watching us.
That'd be great.
Have that link. It matters. Look,
and please know this is not going to me. 100% goes. It's really, I'm doing this for my nephews more than anything else. This is for them. I have 2 traumatized nephews and 2 that are not so traumatized because they're too young to realize it. This is for them, and they deserve it because they're going to go through the rest of their lives without their dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
So from a guy like you that talked about this has all been about acceptance, and literally a post that I saw from you where you said that you've hit more bottoms in your life than you care to remember. How do you push through now? What is it? What moves you in terms of keeping that beautiful presence that you have, that sense that every conversation that I've had with you until you've shared these moments with me has always felt easy and inclusive. How are you able to do that? Like I said, again, in terms of what moves you,
I
what
love people.
influences you?
I love people.
Nice.
I just love people. And I feel that I really, really do want to succeed in life. And that's there's so many areas of your life to succeed in. And I believe that the more connections I have, the more effect on human beings that I have, the better my life will be. Not just monetarily. There'll be substance behind it. Listen, I've been a millionaire 3 times over, and I've been broke 4 times over.
Okay.
I got news for you. At the end of the day, that's not going to keep you happy.
Yeah.
It makes things easier. It makes things better in regards to you can help people out more, right? And you can make this world better, right? For yourself and for others. But that's not going to make you happy. It won't. I can guarantee it. I know people today that are not rich, wealthy, okay? And they would switch places with anybody today. Like I've walked people off the bridge before that, have everything going for them. So that's really where it's at. I love to carry a message of hope, pride, joy, and more than anything else, I love to motivate people. I think the ability to take a person from here to even here, I'm not even going up here, right?
Yeah.
Like from here to here, if you're able to do that much, 1/8 of you could crack a smile on somebody where they have nothing to smile about. You should pat yourself on the back.
It's beautiful. Now, I know where to find you, man, in terms of how to reach out and all that. What are the best ways to find you?
There's 3 ways, right? Facebook,
Yes.
Instagram. Facebook is my name, Gabriel German. Instagram, I'm motivated_mortgages. Or you can always call me at 917-574-2611. I know I really didn't get too deep into mortgages or anything like that today. I really didn't want to. I still don't like to. If you have any questions, mortgage related, I'm very good at my job. I do what needs to be done. You can always call me.
I love that. And folks, we're going to have those 3 contact links in the profile here as well too, because Gabe German, as I have now come to learn, is somebody you should know too. I'm fortunate because I know of Gabe, and I know also of that sense of warmth and connection because I was one of the lucky benefactors. But for you, whether it's mortgage, whether it's business, whether it's personal, Gabriel German is somebody you should know. And Gabe, I am wildly grateful to you for making time for me today. Folks,
thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
100% my pleasure. And folks, you've just heard another episode of Your Message Received. Again, keep liking, watching, listening, sharing. Tell your family, tell your friends, and we'll keep driving content right through your door. My name is John Duffin. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Have a great rest of the day, folks. Be good, be well. Bye-bye.
And now, making its way across the finish line, Your Message Received has been a production of Duffin Media.